Not this time, Pep Guardiola, not this time. Kay Murray and Luis Miguel Echegaray here with you all the reaction to that. Janusz Michallik will be joining us in just a moment. Manchester City beaten again at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium by Spurs. 1-0 it finished, a landmark goal for Harry Kane as well. We're going to get into that, but it also means that the top two in the Premier League were beaten on the same weekend. So where does this leave us, Luis? Where does this leave us?
Hey, I don't know how weird today is. I'm going all over Twitter, and Arsenal fans are rejoicing at a Harry Kane winner and Tottenham winning. It's kind of incredible. Like you said, of course, Arsenal don't win because they lose to Everton and Sean Dyche. And now Tottenham, with that historic Harry Kane goal, 267 goals for the club, passes the great Jimmy Greaves, of course, and joins the club 200, right, with Wayne Rooney and Alan Shearer. And Tottenham, like you said, they love playing City at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. This is the fifth time now. Unbelievable. What a big win. 1 point from Newcastle United in fourth, K. A fantastic victory for Tottenham.
And all of this without Antonio Conte on the sidelines. And interesting as well, just the fact, 17 days ago that the two met? Spurs went 2-0 up in the first half, and Man City came back and managed to win that game. And then this time around, Spurs went 1-0 up in the first half. You wondered what would happen, but there were all sorts of questions about City today, about their formation, about Pep Guardiola's choices. And that's something that I think is going to be talked about for the whole week over now. Apparently, with some of the bookies, Arsenal are title favourites once again, because that seems to have been flip-flopping. And you can understand why that's the case, because they're like, okay, you had a chance here, City, to at least reduce that gap a little bit, and you didn't do it. And obviously a lot's going to come down to those Premier League games, which we've been talking about a lot. So you're sticking with your fact that Arsenal are title favourites, Luis. I know you've said it for a long time now.
Yes, I am. Can you hear the strength in my voice? I can't. I'm still remaining with it. I feel like there's too many narratives for it not to happen. But, you mentioned, City and Arsenal still have to play each other in the Premier League twice, and that's going to be a massive determining factor. I will change my mind on how deep the horse, their title race is, how many horses are in it. I think it is definitely, I agree with my current colleagues. I'm not going anywhere, ESPN. With my colleagues, I believe Janusz said it as well. He will join us in a second about how it's a two-horse race, and I believe that that's the case at this point. But the Man City-Arsenal matches in the Premier League coming up are massive. They are huge. You mentioned the formations from Man City and Pep Guardiola today. I was a little bit, interested to see, De Bruyne obviously being on the bench, and Phil Foden couldn't make it because he was sick. I was trying to figure out Rico Lewis, who's very talented. I feel like he was looking at Pep Guardiola over the course of the game to see, what do I do now, boss? A lot of responsibility on the young man's shoulders, and I think Tottenham took full advantage. Erling Haaland, Kay, didn't register a single shot. Amazing.
Well, we got a tweet during the game you probably saw from our colleague Craig Burley, who said, you need to remind City that they have Haaland and that they can get wide and get those crosses coming into him. And that's something that I feel that we keep repeating whenever it comes to a game like this. It had been interesting seeing his stats because of those 25 goals in the Premier League. He's not scored away from home since December 28th. And I think it's only crazy. 1 in 6 away from home right now. That might make it 1 in 7 after this game. So there's been, obviously not his fault, as we can say, a lot of these games, if he's not getting the service and the ball's not coming in, what's he to do? Let's get Janusz Michallik in, shall we? Because there's so much to unpack here. We'll start with the big picture, though, as we welcome him in. Hello, Janusz.
Hello, guys. How are you?
We're great,
hey,
thanks.
Janusz.
Title race. Still Arsenal's to lose?
Yeah. I haven't been on the side of Arsenal winning it for sure. As you know, it's theirs to lose. Even today, even after this result, I think we'll get to the Manchester City problems, I guess, at that particular stadium. But yes, City didn't take advantage of what was in front of them. I'm not surprised at that this is happening at Spurs. This was a perfect game for Spurs, wasn't it? Come to Papa kind of game because, let's face it, right? Here we are. This is one opponent where they could have been pragmatic, right? I mean, we've been talking about Spurs at home. They haven't been great against weaker opposition, right? They've been boring at times. I think the fans of Tottenham wanted to see a little bit more. But here's Manchester City coming in. Nobody's going to care how Tottenham plays. Although it has to be said that they played their favorite game, defended very well, countered, and they have a special striker in Harry Kane, who for me is the best striker in the Premier League.
Okay, just before you come in, Luis, the fact that Janusz said that with Spurs' home form, something did seem to have happened before this game to their home form. They'd lost 4 of the last 5. They'd shipped 2 or more goals in all 5 of those games. They'd been 2-0 down at halftime 3 times. And before that, they'd won 8 successive home games. So they'll be glad to have put that one out of their way this time. But you've got to echo the sentiment there that it does feel at the end of this game that Spurs deserved it, Luis.
Yeah, 100% they deserved it. Absolutely. Janusz said it himself, and I was there, when Villa won at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Quiet, Tottenham fans really just not happy with the overall creativity of the Spurs side, being way too reactive. But I think, and again, I agree with Janusz, this come to Papa thing, exactly right. Because Man City, Pep Guardiola was trying to act like the mad scientist today, trying to figure out exactly what kind of strategy he wanted to do. I did see Erling Haaland drop deep in the early stages of this match. Obviously, Riyad Mahrez and Grealish swapping sides as well. But, Tottenham were very good, very composed, very strong. And even though Romero got sent off in this game, he was very, aggressive enough to deny any kind of notable chances for Manchester City. I thought Tottenham were really good. And obviously everything, all arrows pointing to Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, who did his part throughout the times. But Kulusevski did his part. I thought Højbjerg was really good, specifically in the first half. Janusz, what did you make overall of Pep Guardiola's, lineup, strategy, and also, most importantly, I guess, as the game developed? How did you see Pep Guardiola manage this one?
Well, I mean, when it comes to Rico Lewis, it's easy to talk about it after the game. But, there's been a narrative, I don't think among the players or the coaches, but everybody's making Rico Lewis a lot more than he is, right? And that's unfortunate. And today is one of those games where you can get found out. Not his fault. He's still very, very young. I thought that perhaps, Pep Guardiola in a game like this, knowing importance of that game, right? Because Arsenal lost, knowing his history in that stadium where they haven't scored a goal and now lost 5 straight, right? Would you not want to go a little bit safer? You have Laporte on the bench and you have Ruben Dias. You can put Ake there. I think that's putting a lot of pressure on the player, and you could see how much he struggled early on. I don't think he played a horrible game, but I just think that it puts an unnecessary pressure and gives us the narrative. And I was watching this, and even before that, I said, my goodness. I mean, the pregame when I was watching on TV, everybody's talking about Rico Lewis. Why are we talking about Rico Lewis? He's an 18-year-old kid that's done very, very well. The future is in front of him, but this was a massive game. Now, De Bruyne, you can look at it in 2 different ways. Yes, I would have started him because you saw that the game changed when he came in, at least for the better for Manchester City. But also part of me is that challenge from Pep, because City haven't been good now for a number of games, right? They've been winning, but Pep's been challenging them. And maybe that was his way of saying kind of nobody's above the team. I don't know what his thinking was behind it, but I don't know if I tinker in a massive game like this where you can go, 2 points closer to Arsenal. So both, indifferent, especially that he's lost now. We have the right to talk about that. And I felt for Rico Lewis in particular.
So when you said there's 2 ways of looking at the Kevin De Bruyne decision, Janusz, give me an actual answer on whether it was a good or a bad decision in hindsight now.
I would have played him. De Bruyne is always in my team. I don't know if there was any other reason. We know that in the first game a couple of weeks ago, he didn't play, but they beat Spurs in that one. But, because of the importance of that team, he's arguably your best player. Well, I shouldn't even say arguably. For me, he's Manchester City's best player. For me, he needed to be on the pitch.
Yeah,
we're just getting some fans in the comments here as well, referencing us, saying that City, we've had this here before. City play with 10 men when Haaland isn't involved. What do you make of this situation again today, Janusz?
Of course, at least I've been consistent on this. They play differently. When I say that Harry Kane's the best striker in the league, he is that, right? Because he does so much more with a lot less in terms of support. And I think, Haaland is How do you say that? Because it's crazy on one hand. He's one-dimensional, isn't he? I mean, I'd like to be as one-dimensional as he is, scoring 25 goals. But, if he doesn't get that service, then it doesn't seem like he's helping you. He's working hard, but again, often look at how many touches he's got, how many, shots on goal. Yes, he just scored 3 goals against Wolves, but they needed him to score a goal here, one that at least gets you a point or gets you 3 points. So again, I'm not putting this on Haaland. He's paid to score goals, and he's doing that. But sometimes you have to ask yourselves when, and, is the game set up for him to be successful? And that very often is questionable.
Yeah, I'm jumping right from that point from Janusz. I think the blame here today is on Pep Guardiola, because I think that Pep Guardiola had 2 things on his tactical tablets in the dressing room, and he just mashed them together today. Because you have Haaland, and starting, you had Riyad Mahrez, Jack Grealish, Bernardo Silva, who kind of played as a pivot as well, and Julian Alvarez. That, to me, was trying to think of saying, I want to do 2 solutions in one, and neither worked. Because how can you have Riyad Mahrez, Jack Grealish, Julian Alvarez, Bernardo Silva as a pivot, who really wasn't working as that either? Haaland just gets lost in that. It shocks me not so ever of him not being that productive today, Kay, because of that specific situation. I think he should have gone. Again, I agree with Janusz. I think Kevin De Bruyne should have started from the get-go. It was a game screaming for him to do it. Rodri had way too much responsibility as the holding midfielder, somebody pushing through. There was not enough creativity. So people were getting lost. And Haaland, essentially, notably, most importantly, didn't get any touches, didn't get a single shot on target or at all.
So what does it tell us? Because remember, we've heard Pep Guardiola this season saying that he feels his team have lost the desire and they've lost some of the hunger. Are we seeing that? How much blame do you put on the coach here, and how much blame do you put on the players not having that hunger and desire to go out and get the wins that we're used to seeing them getting and playing that tempo that we're used to seeing a top City side playing?
Well, he kind of probably knows he's looking for reaction, right? I mean, he knows that things may be slipping away from him, and reactions are important, right? Because we have the same situation at Chelsea where there's a massive reaction, although they've jumped on it a little bit ahead of the summer, right? You look at Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, he's got the same issue. His reaction was Fabinho, but he also knows that this is a massive point in time where you have to kind of, see where the team is going to go, right? Because this is not just about one game. This is the rest of the season and perhaps later on. I mean, if you look at Pep Guardiola, he understands that Pep Guardiola has created a monster at Manchester City in a positive way, right? But all these players have won just about everything under him, right? And it's very, very hard now to have a go at players that are winners, that they know, that some things maybe are behind them. So, I mean, this isn't a game where you look for motivation because you motivate yourself for massive games like this. But I can understand Pep Guardiola trying to kind of say, how do I go about this? I have to make an example of someone, but I can't have 1 or 2 or 3 players that I can't touch. He's done it with Cancelo. His motivation with De Bruyne, I'm not sure I understand. Maybe there's more that we don't know, but I think that's what he's doing here. I think he sees it that things aren't right, and he's going to have to stir up a little bit. How successful he's going to be, there's a fine line in that with so many accomplished players.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to forget as well how maybe, what was it, a month and a half ago when he was like, I don't care about the Premier League. I mean, I know that he's joking and it's obviously like, a sort of subliminal message for his squad. But those things matter, I think. And I think they can translate to certain players, definitely young ones, throughout the, a scourge of a season. I mean, we just witnessed Sean Dyche, and I know it was a motivational pool the moment a new manager comes in, but it was a very significant victory for Everton. But the reason why they won, aside from the fact that they were willing and they were at Goodison Park and, the energy was there, is because Sean Dyche was just like, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Let's keep this simple. Sometimes I think Guardiola out-Guardiolas himself. Sometimes you just got to be simple. Put De Bruyne from the get-go in this game. You want to put Haaland, or you want to, have this sort of fluidity with, Mahrez, Grealish, and Julian Alvarez. One or the other. But be simple, be simplistic, and then we can evaluate. Because sometimes I think he tries to play too much of 5-dimensional chess, and in the end, it doesn't work out, just like today.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And we're saying a comment here regarding the Champions League. If he doesn't care about the Premier League, we know he cares about the Champions League. Pep is definitely going to be worried about Leipzig. and they've been in form as well. They were stopped at the weekend. It's just 0-0 in their game, but they have been in form. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Let's talk about Harry Kane. And we'll go bigger picture Harry Kane, Janusz. But first of all, let's just actually focus on his goal today.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, because there's one small thing about the whole conversation that we've had, because it's good to talk Manchester City bigger picture, but in this game, let's not forget that Spurs were unbelievable today. I mean, that's before we even get to Kane, because it's almost as if Manchester City gave that away. No, Spurs earned that win in so many ways, and I'm happy for Conte. On one hand, I almost think that it was kind of, I don't want to say good that he wasn't there, but I think it gave his players a little bit of a freedom, right?
Yep,
but
100%. Yep.
I also feel that almost part of me wants to think, as a player formerly, that they did play for him, because he wasn't there. I mean, he's had a difficult year, to say the least, in his life, right? I mean, in general. So I just think there was something in it. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I do think that, and they were excellent. In terms of Harry Kane, Kay, what do you want to know? I mean, he's been absolutely incredible. I've said it here before. I'll say it again. I mean, he'd be doing that and more in Manchester City had they gotten him, right? Because he was very, very close. I mean, his 17 goals to the 25. Yeah, look, I mean, I still rather have 25 than 17, but if you put that in perspective, I mean, that's as many as 25 when you play for Spurs, the way Spurs play in particular. But the goal itself, I mean, yeah, I mean, his awareness, I mean, Rodri with a very rare mistake, because he doesn't do that, and then Højbjerg anticipating, and just his awareness, looking in front, looking over his shoulder and finishing that so easily. This is the beauty of Harry Kane, because, he only needs one chance, doesn't he? Right. I mean, it's almost as if when he gets the ball in positions like this, for me, is absolutely automatic. There's very few players in the history of this game, really, in the history of this game, that don't, they don't need much to turn it into a goal. But it's not just the finishing skills and the coolness, I guess, and the composure and all that, but just the spatial awareness. I mean, it's just incredible. And we've doubted him from the moment he stepped on the pitch for Spurs, and he's been doing this over and over and over again. And it's fitting that in a big game like this, he's, he broke the record. Just an incredible goal scorer, incredible player in general.
He said after the game, when I started playing regularly, it wasn't even in my imagination to score 200 Premier League goals. And then to think about it, to become the all-time top scorer and past Jimmy Greaves as well. Jimmy Greaves, his son, Danny Greaves, there was a message put up at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium afterwards. All the fans stuck around for that. Pretty much no one had gone home to watch that for Harry Kane. Such a special moment for him. Such a big question for you now, though, Janusz. Would City have been better with Kane than Haaland?
I think at this moment, yes. But I say that only because Erling Haaland is very, very young. Huh? I mean, what he's doing at his age right now is absolutely incredible. So Erling Haaland may get to the level or to the point where Harry Kane is. But if you look at Manchester City right now, well, I could say that about any team. They'd be better with him. But yes, in the setup, I think Harry Kane would be a better option for Spurs at this moment. But let's just wait, because 3, 4, 5 years from now, we may be talking about Erling Haaland with, I don't know, 350 Premier League goals, and this point will be silly.
Yeah, it's Erling Haaland's first season in the Premier League. He's very young, so we have to wait and see. However, I think the answer lies within the explanation of Harry Kane himself. He is a complete forward, not just a striker who's so good technically, finisher, but he's a complete forward. He's so good at seeing the pitch 3 seconds and what's going to happen 3 seconds or 5 seconds before anybody else. So the answer to me at this moment is yes, of course, because he can give so much more, so much diversity and productivity. So for sure, to me, the answer is very simple. But like Janusz said, Erling Haaland, his first season in the Premier League, leading the Golden Boot. He's still very young. My goodness, the sky's the limit for that kid.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.